Imagine a world. Not just any world, but yeah. Enough with the dramatic, spicy. Let's talk about what you guys most likely already know. And if you don't know, welcome to the recap, baby. If you're new here, this is actually a continuation of my very first video, where I tamed every fantasy creature I possibly could in 100 days. No, this isn't your average Minecraft world. No, this is a world full of all kinds of new creatures and fantasy beasts. There are sirens, sea serpents, dragons, and all kinds of other mythical creatures from your storybooks. And maybe a few very unique bosses. Previously, I had spent 100 days in this fantasy world with one big main goal in mind: to tame as many of these fantasy creatures as I possibly could. Since I had previously been successful in my first 100 days on this world, it was about time we come up with some new goals. Number 1. I was rushed last time, so I want to make sure I build a nice enclosure for every single one of my creatures. And number 2, I would love to fight some of the bosses of this world with the help of my newfound pets. And as a bonus goal, maybe we even try to hatch a fire and lightning dragon. With new goals now in mind and a ton of requests from you guys, I am excited to announce my 100 more days in a fantasy Minecraft world. Hello everybody, and welcome back to my 100-day fantasy series, which will technically be 200 days by the end of this, but for the sake of simplicity, welcome back to day 1. The first thing I wanted to do when I got back onto this world was go check on my little ice dragon, Dreamfire. So far, my little baby seemed to be doing excellent. I fed little Dreamfire a couple raw mutton chops and then decided I needed to start making some armor for her. Though dragons are all-powerful creatures, ice dragons unfortunately are some of the weaker kinds. Since I checked on my dragon, I figured it was also time I check on my other creatures. And wow, they really were gonna need their own enclosures because this thing was cramped. But before I worked on their enclosures, I figured I should probably go take a little cave run and grab some iron, considering I used all of it and still didn't have enough for a single piece of dragon armor. I finished gathering all the supplies I was gonna need and then headed out for the caves. Not too far away, I found a little crevice that opened up into a much larger cave, and I also spotted some iron in it, so of course I dove on in there. As I went down further into the cave, I ended up coming across a little glowing mushroom guy, and man oh man, I forgot how freaking cute these little guys are. I love them! I ended up finding another one of those little tunnel things that I'd found in my last 100-day world, and decided to follow it just for a little bit. I even found a few more diamonds on my journey for iron, and decided I couldn't just pass it up. You could also visibly see my confusion here when none of my weapons seemed to be doing any damage, no matter how many times I hit mobs. Which also reminded myself, and I figured I should probably remind you guys, I also have an origin. I'm a plantomancer, which means I can heal in water, I run extra fast during the day, and I can grow any kind of plant with just a few clicks. But on the downside, I also have weakness in the dark, which ended up obviously explaining why I wasn't doing damage to any of these mobs. And when I finally got out of the cave, it was finally day 3. When I got back, I immediately started smelting all the iron I possibly could. And slowly I began building each little set of armor for my dragon. And while the rest of the iron smelted, I decided I wanted to go check around the property and see where I could potentially put all of these enclosures. I ended up settling for the area behind my garden because it was relatively flat and it also wasn't too far away from my hippocampus enclosure. which I would also be redoing. I put Bucky back with his friends and then decided I was gonna start on the enclosures now, or at least clearing the area, because there was a ton of birch trees. Day 4, I continued clearing the area when I came across an adorable little guy. Flying squirrel. Oh, what do you want? I'll give you anything. A carrot? Take a carrot. So cute, dude. What? With all the birch trees, it took me the whole day to chop them all down. And even after I chopped them down and made the terrain how I wanted, it still took a little longer than I had anticipated. On day 5, the first enclosure I decided I wanted to start working on was gonna be for my cockatrices. So I hopped on my hippogriff, Bucky, and we headed to the nearest savanna biome, which wasn't really near at all. And as I neared the savanna biome, I spotted something very strange out of the corner of my eye that I'd never seen before. Have one of these? What are they? What is that thing? Never seen one of you. They don't look friendly, but like I'm gonna get a little close. It's kind of cute. Why does it sound like that? Somehow I ended up actually losing it. I seriously have no idea where it went. How you lose a floating eyeball beats me. But by the time I got back to my hippogriff, it was already almost nighttime. But that wasn't a problem for me. I mean, I have dragon armor, so I'm basically unstoppable, right? Alright, what if I park my hippogriff up here? That is a big dragon, dude. As I'd been flying overhead on my hippogriff, I had noticed this giant dragon skeleton. And I was so curious to see what type of dragon could have met its fate here. Stage 5 lightning. And to be honest, I pretty much spent the rest of this Minecraft night chopping trees, fighting mobs, and exploring the village. And on day 6, I flew right back home and immediately started working on my cockatrice enclosure. When it got too dark, I took Bucky back to the safe house and then went to bed. Day 7, I also just worked on this enclosure most of the day. And just as the sun was beginning to set, I led Chicken Little and Nugget to their new home, which I think they actually really liked. And since there wasn't much daylight left, I figured I would just go check on my dragon, because she was a growing girl and needed a lot of food. On day 8, I started on a new enclosure for my hippogriff. Because hippogriffs are oftentimes found in hilly biomes, I wanted to create a little kind of hill or cliff, something he could enjoy and stand on and feel at home. This build was gonna require a lot of stone and a lot of dirt, both of which I didn't have any of. So days 8 and 9, I worked on building this and gathering supplies. And by the end of day 9, I was finally finished with my hippogriff enclosure, as well as my cockatrice enclosure, both of which turned out a lot better than I thought they would. For now, these enclosures would be temporary, but I definitely planned on expanding them in the future. On day 10, I left my house and decided I wanted to go exploring. While I wasn't looking for anything in particular, I mostly just wanted to get some inspiration from the outside world. A few hundred blocks later, and I found yet another cherry blossom biome, but this time, this one had a tiger in it. For some reason, my first instinct was to just chuck a piece of chicken at it and hope for the best.
You dare throw chicken at me, mortal? Okay.
Nice, kitty. Wait, did I just tame him? Oh my god, am I a tiger owner now? Turns out, I did not in fact tame it. I actually had basically just bribed it with a piece of chicken to not kill me for 10 minutes. And after learning this key piece of information, I figured I should just scram. I wandered around a little more despite the dark and also saw how scary tigers actually looked without the blessing. Bro's moving. I even ended up coming across a dragon lair. So maybe it was a good thing I found it during the night. On day 11, I found out what I wanted to build next. My fairies enclosure, which was gonna be a little smaller than the others, but they're small creatures, so it works out. So for now, this tiny little mushroom build I wanted to do would be okay. The goal, similar to the plan of my actual house, was to base it off of a mushroom. Basically just making an enlarged mushroom for the fairies to live in. And I even added smaller fairy houses, just for a little pizzazz. I added a couple cute little fairy lights on the inside of the mushroom and then finally led my pixie in, which I realized I actually haven't named yet, so we know what our next name tag will be doing. I'm also addicted to adding leaves around literally every build I do, so of course I just had to do it here as well. Despite all the iron I had collected the last time I went caving, I still needed way more to complete my ice dragon set of armor. And so on day 12 I headed right back into the caves to get even more iron. I spent the entire day mining, and then I finally came into a cave with a really strange looking structure in the middle.
Kinda looks like a fire dragon, like the color.
I wasn't exactly sure what kind of dragon this was, but based off the brown-orange coloring, I could only assume it was fire-related. While I wasn't prepared to fight a dragon right now, especially a fire dragon, I decided to mark the coordinates, or at least try to remember where this was, and move on. And I did my best to sneak out undetected. But as I dug my way out, I ended up finding a skeleton spawner, and managed to kill all the skeletons before grabbing their loot. By the time I got back to my house, it was night. So I smelted my iron and headed right to bed. On day 13, I went and visited Dreamfire, and as much as I had been trying so hard to grow my little dragon naturally, I decided that I was growing impatient, and I thought about grabbing some dragon meals in order to speed the process up, because I'm gonna be honest, I just really want to ride a dragon. I mean, who doesn't? I picked some of my wheat crops so I could get more seeds and more wheat to feed my animals and potentially slaughter them, but it was all worth it for my dragon. However, the night approached very quickly and I decided I would just sleep for the night and then tomorrow I would set out in search of more animals. Thanks to my Planimancer skills and swiftness, I quickly found chickens on day 14 as well as some other animals and decided to start shopping. But I'd also noticed this large, black, scary looking structure and decided to go check it out. Turns out it had a lot of mobs and a lot of good loot in it. And while I was here fighting these mobs off anyways, I figured I might as well get some free XP out of it. When I finally decided I had enough, I headed into the snow biome a little more, but came across some strange looking trees. They looked oddly familiar, and turns out, oh yeah, that was exactly what I thought they were.
Okay, what if I go home, make a bow, and then come back and try to fight it?
Right about here was when I realized something that would make my life so much easier.
Oh wait, this was actually so big. We got this out of a chest. We can make this, and then we can do more damage against fire dragon. Wait, this is amazing.
Already my bonus goal of killing and hatching a baby fire dragon was becoming way more realistic. I had just about everything I needed to make one of these swords, which would in turn do way more damage to fire dragons and make it so much easier to kill them and steal their child. Just as I headed out of my house on day 15, I noticed a raccoon near my house with something in its mouth.
You have a blobfish bucket in his mouth?
I even tried to trade the raccoon some bread for the bucket of blobfish, but he drove a hard bargain, and I decided to let him keep it. Finally, I decided it was time to head down to my girl Dreamfire and feed her some dragon meals, which didn't really do that much, but that's okay. I was gonna continue to feed her these dragon meals just to make her bigger and stronger for the next couple days. I then decided to go on a little scavenger hunt for my death worm, mayonnaise, which I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea where this thing is. I have literally not seen this worm since the day I hatched it, and it just makes me miss my boy Ranch a little more every day. With very little daylight left, I made my way back to this structure and decided to keep farming for the night.
Dude, why is there so many?
I ended up fighting an army of what seemed to be White Walkers off the rest of the night. Day 16, I really didn't do anything that exciting. I mean, I enchanted my bow and got an infinity on it, and then I basically spent the rest of the day smelting my iron and making blocks of iron so I could then complete Dreamfire's armor set. Day 17 was when I actually finished making the armor and put it onto Dreamfire, just so she had a little extra protection in case of anything bad happening. The rest of the day, I set off to adventure just a little bit more and see if I could actually locate that ice dragon. But I ended up coming across something else instead.
I just saw a dragon. It's definitely not the ice dragon though. It was a different. I'm not really sure what color scheme that is supposed to mean, but oh, okay, I figured out what kind it is. It's a fire dragon. Oh no, God, he's coming for me! Oh no! Ah! Sorry. I'm gonna go down here. God, I'm gonna... God!
Eventually, I did get my stuff back, but unfortunately, I lost so many levels I had worked so hard for. And I knew the dragon was still right above this cave, so I had to sneak out during the night. And as I was walking back to my house for the night, I noticed I had, accidentally started a forest fire. Well, technically it wasn't my fault. It was the dragon's fault. But I also noticed the ice dragon's ice spikes all around, and I couldn't help but wonder where this ice dragon actually was, or if the fire and ice dragon had killed each other. On day 18, I fed Dreamfire some more dragon meals, and as she grew bigger and bigger, I started to look around and realized she was getting way too big for this tiny cave, which meant I was either gonna have to expand this cave or build her a whole new enclosure. By the time the night had hit, I had decided I was going to take my two cockatrices, Chicken Little and Nugget, on a little hunting spree. So I walked them over to the beach towards where my hippocampi was and decided to let them do their thing. I watched as my little guys killed and withered away every single mob that came even close to me, which got me thinking, what if we built an army of cockatrices? Once they were done hunting, I brought them back to their enclosure to rest for the night. The next day, I began to do some research over breeding cockatrices, but as far as I could tell, there was no way to actually breed them, so I'd have to do it the old-fashioned way, waiting for my chickens to lay a rotten egg. Or like 10. And with so much to do, I decided I should really start on my amphitheories enclosure. Turns out I was pronouncing a couple of these little fantasy creature names wrong, so no promises I'm gonna ever get it right, but I will do my best. Anyways, I was heading off to a jungle to grab some jungle saplings and any other jungle-related items I could grab to start my Pepper. Their name's Pepper, so just to start Pepper's enclosure. I started to collect some saplings and then saw a baby amphitheories across the water. And obviously it was so adorable I had to check it out. And oh, how badly I wanted to take this cutesy little guy home. But unfortunately, since he was not an adult, I could not tame him yet. I'll be back for you, buddy. Once I'd finally gathered everything I needed, I headed off into the sunset to return to my cozy little home. Day 20 through 24, I basically just cleared the trees and began construction for the enclosure. I wanted to make this enclosure a little larger than the others since Pepper was a larger creature. As I rode Pepper in, I realized he only had 3 hearts, which was totally not normal for his kind. And I figured now's a good time to give you some Pepper lore. So basically, when I first got him and I rode him back to my house, we had gotten attacked by a fire dragon. And I didn't put it in because, well, I died. And I had to go back and get all my stuff, and it just wasn't worth 20 more minutes of a video. So in doing some research, I found out how to get his hearts back. I needed to feed him cocoa beans, which I swore I had, but apparently I was very wrong. I decided even though it was sunset, it was probably a good time to go back to the jungle biome and get some cocoa beans, especially since most dragons sleep during the night. So I hopped on Pepper and we took off back to the jungle biome. and by the time we landed, the stars had begun to come out. Quickly, I grabbed as many cocoa beans as I could see and fed them right to Pepper so that I didn't have to worry about him losing any more hearts. I then grabbed a couple more cocoa beans to grow in his enclosure and some bamboo I'd seen across the way. Finally, we decided to leave under the cover of darkness.
Listen, I know this isn't the craziest mob that is in this fantasy pack, but this has gotta be one of my favorites.
I continued working around the plot to add some paths to all of the enclosures, and then decided to start on a proper shelter for my amphitheory. Because, oh man, I wish I was kidding when I said I actually genuinely feel terrible by letting my animals in Minecraft stay out in the rain. So of course I finished and moved Pepper right on into the shelter, and came back the next day to work even more on the enclosure. I also managed to stop by my chicken coop, and threat seemed to work a little bit last time, so I told them they would be my next meal if they didn't produce me a rotten egg for my cockatrice army. The last thing I needed to add to my amphitheory's enclosure was just some things to make it a little more aesthetically pleasing. I had finally finished, and honestly, I really liked how it turned out. Since amphitheories originate from jungle biomes, I wanted to make it as homey as possible. Already, my 3 enclosures I had just built were looking pretty good, and I couldn't wait to build more. I started to head back to my house, but decided I should probably check on my chickens. And, lo and behold, I'm telling you guys, threats work. I got a rotten egg.
Hatch, please hatch, please hatch.
Yes! Yes!
Amazing, wonderful, splendid even.
For those of you who do not know, rotten eggs are a very rare drop from chickens. And even if you get a rotten egg, there's only a 25% chance of actually hatching a cockatrice. On day 25, I woke up eager to name my new cockatrice. But then I realized I only had 1 name tag, and I've had a pixie for about 100 days with no name, so I should probably let her go first. We now had a pixie named Rosetta, and we'd have to look for some more name tags very soon. But for now, it was time to head back to the savannah/desert biome to look for a couple of things. One of the main reasons I decided to come here was to look for some wild cockatrices. And I wish I could tame them, but there was no way for me to get them all the way back to my house, so I needed to kill them to get some wither bones. Thankfully, I only needed 1 wither bone and some dragon bones to complete the ice sword. And so I grabbed my wither bones and decided it was time to leave. As I flew through the storm back to my house, things took an awful turn.
Oh god. It's not great. Not great at all. I just need to lose him. I just need to lose him.
Bucky and I were now being chased through the skies by a fire dragon. I flew for miles and miles just trying to escape this dragon, but alas, he was not giving up.
Oh no.
And just when I thought it could not get any worse, a second opponent appeared.
Oh, there's 2! Oh my god. I might be dead here. So might Bucky. This isn't good, guys. This isn't good.
Currently, it was not my life I was the most concerned with. It was my hippogriff. So I absolutely had to come up with a plan that would keep him out of harm's way, even if it meant my own demise.
I jump off mid-air. I have to hope there's no sea serpents around this area, because I'm hoping to come around here maybe. No sea serpents, shift and jump off. Hoping that he will keep flying, or at least I will go somewhere and then they can kill me instead of him. But then what if they still kill my hippogriff? It might be our only shot. I don't... Oh no. I'm so conflicted. I just don't want that. I honestly don't care if I die. I just don't want my hippogriff to die. So I need to jump off. I think that's the only thing I can do. I can't think of literally anything else.
This was my only shot at keeping Bucky alive. So all I could do was jump and pray that the Minecraft gods favored me today.
Ugh. I don't know how I survived that. I don't know how I survived that. Timed it way wrong. Okay, they're fighting each other. This is good. This is what I needed. This is what I needed. While they're fighting each other, I need to go get my hippogriff and escape. This is the plan. Giddy up, boy. Whew. Oh my god, oh no, I did it again. Oops. Up. Okay, there we go. We're good. This is fine. Woo! God, I'm good. Wow. Who would have thought? You know, not me. I thought I was really messed up that time around.
We had narrowly escaped with our lives, thanks to my feather falling 3 boots that I totally forgot I had on. By the time I had finally returned home, it was towards the end of day 26. And wow, what an adventure I had had in the last day. But now that I had a witherbone, I could actually start creating the base of the sword. Then I grabbed the ice dragon blood, and finally I'd made an ice dragon bone sword. I also decided to add a little sharpness to enchant just for a little more damage. Mostly because I was really gonna need it. Because one other thing I forgot to mention is as a planomancer, I am extremely flammable. I take way more damage to fire, which would make getting a fire dragon egg one of my hardest tasks I'd have to do in this entire world. However, when the time actually came, I knew I would do my best to prepare for the fight. And I was gonna get that fire dragon egg if it was the last thing I did. On day 27, I came back down to Dreamfire's cave after having fed her a couple more dragon meals, and noticed she was getting quite big. And when I went to view her stats, I saw she was now a stage 3 dragon, which meant I could actually start riding her. Now, have I ever ridden a dragon before? No. Did I know anything about it? Absolutely not. Which is also why I kind of destroyed most of the cave and a couple of the things around it. But that's beside the point. I'm riding a freaking dragon, guys. Me and her had a little one-on-one girl chat and talked about how I've actually never ridden a dragon before and I needed her to take it very easy on me. I think she understood. I went ahead back to my farm and started chopping up some of the chickens and sheep just so I could get some meat for her. And since she was growing at such a fast pace, I figured it was about time I start smelting some cobblestone so I could make stone brick, because I had a very interesting enclosure in mind. For some reason, at like 3 a.m. last night, IRL, I could not sleep and could not stop thinking about my dragons in this world. And in my brain, I said, you know what, Spicy? You gotta build a castle for the dragons, okay? Because that's the only thing that makes sense. So I decided to stick to that vision, but as I started, actually building it, I was wondering if this was a good idea at all. You see, as much as I absolutely love castles, I literally have never even tried to build one in Minecraft before, so this was a whole new experience for me. And to answer your question, no, I absolutely did not have a plan for it. As I was attempting to build this castle, I noticed my hippocampus escaping his enclosure and trying to make a break for it towards the ocean. I quickly caught up to him, seeing as he is incredibly slow on land. Don't worry, Bubbles, we'll get your enclosure in no time. I spent the next 6 days mining cobblestone, smelting cobblestone, making stone bricks, and building up this castle. It came together surprisingly quickly, but it's still, it wasn't giving castle, it was giving, well, nothing. It wasn't giving anything yet. So for the next few days, I continued working through the storms, trying to make it look at least a little better, a little more detailed. And even though I wasn't completely finished on day 37, I figured I should probably start moving Dreamfire out there before she grew way too big for this cave. I saddled up, and now it was time for the moment of truth. Would Dreamfire accept me? Would I be a good rider? I finally took the leap of faith.
Dude, this is sick. Wait. Oh my god. Oh! Dude, this is so cool. Wait, why am I literally Daenerys? Wait, this is so awesome. Yes, ride, dragon, ride. Alright, welcome to your new home for a bit. Yeah, this is a good, who's a good Dreamfire? Who's a good little girl? Who's a good girl? Mwah! God, I love her. She's so beautiful. I want to make sure Dreamfire is of a good stage, maybe stage 4, at least before I take her out, because I would never forgive myself if something happened to my dragon. Not that I don't have faith in her, but I just want to be extra careful.
Even though Dreamfire was now a stage 3 dragon, which meant she was pretty powerful and had still a lot of HP, I was a little wary on taking her out. Mostly because, like I mentioned before, ice dragons are a lot weaker than lightning and fire dragons. And just a few thousand blocks away in that ice biome, I'd seen a stage 5 ice dragon. Because of all these reasons, I decided I was gonna keep her in this makeshift castle for just a few more days. Or at least until she turned stage 4. As I headed back to my house with my little crow friend Pumpkin, we approached the garden and heard something strange. Something that gave me PTSD.
Not this again.
If you watched my first 100 Days in a Fantasy World video, you will know my traumatic history with these spooky ass discs. It only took me a few minutes till I finally found the culprit and got rid of him. That night, I stayed up a little later and began to make some golden apples with what little apples I had. I planned on going out tomorrow and exploring some more, and I needed golden apples just in case I ran into a dragon, but what's the likelihood of that, right? So day 38, I set out into uncharted territory to go exploring for any kinds of creature, items, anything that looked a little unique. At first, I didn't really see anything interesting. I mean, maybe a couple cool trees, this really cool bridge, and I kept going until I came across a snow biome.
Dragon spotted. Do I go for it? Is it worth it? Is that a bad idea?
Now, this definitely wasn't the same ice dragon I'd seen earlier. This was clearly a much lower level of dragon. So I had to think about the benefits of killing this thing, which were not much. Considering it was a low dragon, it wouldn't give me an egg, it probably wouldn't give me very many scales, and it really wasn't attacking me, so did I really have to go after it? I finally decided to just let the little guy go, and I kept exploring until I found this snow biome village. I went from door to door, raiding each little villager, and even came across a very large dragon skeleton. When I finished raiding the village, I figured it was probably time I head back towards my house under the cover of night. I didn't get very far before I spotted something in the distance that caught my eye. Turns out it was a snowball mushroom, but it had a really cool planks that it produced, so I grabbed as many of these as I could. I stole a new horse from another nearby village and then headed home through a snowstorm. But on my way, I noticed some icicles that came from an ice dragon on the ground. And I couldn't help but wonder where this ice dragon might possibly be.
Oh, shiitake mushroom on a stick. This is not good. This is not good. This is not good. Oh god, oh god, oh god.
Even though I had a fire sword and a full set of dragon armor, I could not help but be worried, considering I had been caught off guard by a stage 5 ice dragon.
Oh no. This is the dragon I saw earlier for sure.
It did not matter how fast, how far I dug, this ice dragon got to me no matter what. Once I thought I'd waited the dragon out enough, I decided to mine out and take my chances with the ice dragon. However, I noticed the dragon had mysteriously given up and was pretty quiet now. So I went further and further up until I finally spotted it.
Oh, it's sleeping.
While the dragon was sedated enough, there was two things I needed to be checking. First, the curve of its horns, and second, the spots on its wings. If this dragon had curvier horns and lighter spots on its wings, it was a female, and I could actually get an egg from it. However, on the contrary, if it had straighter horns and darker spots on its wings, I was probably fighting a male, and it really would be a lot of work for no reward other than some scales.
Oh, those are curvy horns, I'd say. I don't see spots on the wings. It might be a female.
I'd already wasted almost half the night sneaking around this dragon trying not to wake it. If there was one thing I knew, it was that I had limited time to decide if I was going to kill this thing or not.
I think it's fun because we're not that far away.
Ultimately, I decided at least if I died, my stuff wouldn't be too far away and it wouldn't be too hard for me to get back. So realistically, what did I have to lose?
I'm going in. I'm going in! I'm gonna do it! Die. He's gonna kill me. It's fine, worth it. Do some damage. Yeah, should have brought potions. Not that far away. I'm not that worried.
5 minutes later.
Okay, so this actually could be a little more sad than I thought. I did find both of my swords, which is fantastic, great. I just can't seem to find my axe or my pickaxe or my chest plate or my boots or my backpack, which had a lot of stuff in it. So it was right around here was where I died, but I can't find anything.
You guys remember like 10 minutes ago when I said, oh yeah, I've got nothing to lose, I might as well go fight this dragon. Well, apparently I was wrong and I actually had everything to lose because I lost all of my stuff. I finally gave up and returned home with nothing but a couple swords, a hat, and a pair of pants in my inventory. On day 41, I woke up and the first thing I did was decide I definitely needed some new tools. Once I had my trusty axe back, it was time to start slaughtering some more food for my dragon. And maybe a little bit for myself, considering I'd lost all of it. I made my way to Bubbles' little temporary enclosure and decided it was time to expand it, make it bigger, give him some more room to swim around. With the other habitats, I'd simply try to correlate the uniqueness of each creature with what they're associated with, or what their habitat is, but I really wasn't sure what to build for my hippocampus. So for now, the only plan was to simply expand this little lagoon I have, and try to make it a lot deeper so Bubbles has a lot easier time swimming around. Day 42, I had finally finished expanding the hippocampus enclosure, and I'd say he was a happy little fellow. And when I woke up on day 43, I figured the best thing I could do for Bubbles' enclosure to make it cutesy and pretty was probably add some kind of coral. But unfortunately, the only way to really get coral is if I get traded by a merchant, or I find a silk touch pickaxe and then go find some coral. I fed Dreamfire some more dragon meals and then decided I was gonna take her for a spin to a nearby village in hopes of maybe finding a librarian villager with a silk touch book. I parked my dragon and then headed into the village to find a library. I went from building to building to building, but could literally not find a single library or a librarian. So I woke Dreamfire up from her slumber and we headed back home. On day 44, I remembered exactly how vulnerable I was with literally a hat and a pair of pants on, so I grabbed some of my old sea serpent armor and then headed out for the day. As I'd been flying by to the village yesterday, I had noticed a cyclops over a hill and decided I wanted to try and kill it, because God knows we need the XP right now. And to be so honest with you, my accuracy this day was awful, god awful, terrible even. I probably spent 10 minutes trying to shoot this cyclops because I was way too scared to get close to it, because I knew it would literally just pick me up and eat me. Having spent half the day trying to kill this thing, I finally hit the final blow. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll get some good stuff out of this. Some XP, maybe even a legendary weapon cyclops eye. Now, what did I get, you might be asking? Well, let me tell you, I got 8 pieces of leather, 5 wool, and 2 levels of XP. Was it worth it? Absolutely not. Gotta love wasting an entire day. However, I decided to start heading towards the other village when I saw the silhouette of a dragon in the distance.
Turning around, baby. We're turning around. Back home we go. But we need dragon armor, so this could be an opportunity.
I put Pepper back in their enclosure and then decided the next day was when I would go out and try to fight the dragon myself. After climbing and wandering around for quite a few minutes, I finally was surprise attacked with some fire.
Holy cow, that was so easy, dude.
I had slayed my very first fire dragon, even though it was, you know, a stage 3 and pretty weak. A victory's a victory, okay? And I got a lot of good XP out of it. I continued walking around the savannah until I came across a tribe of bird people, and decided once again I needed the XP.
Yeah, run, bitch. Huh.
There was another village not too far away, so I decided I'd just stop by and see if they had any librarians with any Silk Touch books by chance. But then I got distracted when I saw some blocks that looked like they were from a dragon.
Is ash? Charred grass. Something has been amiss here.
I was now convinced that there was another fire dragon lurking around this village as well. So I totally forgot what I came there for and basically just walked around looking for a dragon the rest of the day. And that night when I got back to my house, it was time to finish the rest of my dragon armor. Day 46, I decided that I wanted to make an armory, or a place where I could house all my armor and weapons because I simply had too many to count. And there wasn't quite enough room in my little cottage. My design was very abstract, very loose, whatever fit in the little spot I had carved out of dirt. So listen, you guys can't judge me for how this build might look because I quite literally did not have a plan and just simply started building an area where I could put armor. I just needed room, okay? I continued working on the outside of it until day 47, and I basically just tried to tuck it behind my cottage so it wasn't super noticeable. And even though it wasn't a massive armory or a massive space, at least I had places to put all my armor stands and all my random masks and armor now. I ran back into my house to make sure I didn't have any other kind of armor to put in there, and I noticed now that my armor stand was gone, there was a clear item frame of Ranch's carcass. After taking a couple moments for grieving once more, I decided that I would go back out and start trying to work a little bit more on my hippocampus enclosure. I decided to add glass around it just to keep out any unwanted visitors like skeletons or zombies or anything else. When day 48 came, I decided I wanted to go exploring for a desert biome. Having been reminded of Ranch, I couldn't help but miss him, and my other death were Mayonnaise, which may or may not be dead. Who knows where Mayonnaise is? I wasn't sure how long this journey was gonna take, so I spent most of the day just cooking up some food for myself so I'd have a fulfilling meal when I was adventuring. I also took some time to enchant the rest of my armor, such as my chest piece and my boots. Then finally I headed out at sunset. And I traveled most of the night until I found myself in a bit of a predicament here. I was trapped in one spot by some unseen mermaids and also fighting a living tornado.
Where are these mermaids at? I literally cannot get out of this.
Of course, me being an absolute genius, I decided to make a crafting table and then make some earplugs so that I couldn't hear the mermaid songs any longer. I had finally discovered a bigger desert biome and immediately noticed some death worms. These death worms seemed a little more difficult to fight than I remembered. I have never been dug into a hole by a death worm before, wasn't even aware that was a thing they could do. But I got an egg on my first death worm kill. I continued exploring into day 49, mostly because I wanted to find some more desert biomes with more death worms in them. But I wasn't looking for just any regular death worm at this point. I was looking for a giant death worm. And even though I wasted most of the day hunting death worms, I finally had a giant death worm egg. You guys have no idea how excited I am to have a giant death worm. You should see these things at their full size. It's insane. But before I put these things down, I needed name tags, which I had none of. So I figured in the meantime, I wanted to build another structure. I figured I would try and build a museum of sorts, somewhere I could keep all my dragon skulls, the sea serpent skulls, and all my fantasy creature items. I worked day and night trying to make sure I got this build done at a reasonable time. But overall, with all the stone bricks and smelting, it took about 5 days. And finally, on day 55, we had a finished product, ladies and gentlemen. At first, I really wasn't sure what to expect with this build, but in the end, it actually turned out to be one of my favorites. And just like that, I had my very first and only fantasy creature museum. By the time I had finished the outside of the museum, it was getting quite dark. As you can see, I didn't really do that much with the inside of the actual museum. I wasn't even sure where I was gonna put stuff yet. So I was definitely gonna have to figure that out soon. But for now, it was time to sleep for the night. On day 56, I woke up and tried to decide where each exhibit should go. I wanted to make each creature their own exhibit, such as dragons altogether, sea serpents, fairies, everything I possibly could with what items I had. I also kind of forgot how massive these stage 5 dragon skulls were. I mean, this took up like half the size of my museum. I couldn't figure it out, so for now, I was just going to put each skull on a little chunk of wood, and I would come back to it later to make sure this museum looked perfect. I also needed to kill a stage 4 dragon because apparently I hadn't done that yet. I'm not sure how, but I was missing a skull. I set aside the exhibits and began working on better lighting most of the day. And with the remainder of the day, decided to go check up on Dreamfire and see if she was almost at stage 4 yet. I couldn't help but compare myself next to her and think about the good old days when she was smaller than my waist. Ugh, they grow up so fast. And while she wasn't exactly a stage 4 dragon yet, she was definitely getting there and only had a few more days. So if I just gave her a couple dragon meals, we could speed the process up, right? However, I still didn't have the supplies to make dragon meals on day 57, so I just gave Dreamfire a little chicken nugget and then headed off to my hippocampus enclosure, which was very unfinished. Today we were gonna take Bubbles for a little spin with one goal in mind, to find some of these underwater mer dwellers and see if they have any chests with some name tags lying around. Luckily, it didn't take long for me to find my first mer dweller who wanted a fish. Now, I've never actually traded with these guys, like ever, so I wasn't really sure what to expect, but I went and killed a fish anyways and handed it right over. In return, I got a sort of depressing achievement, as well as a depth casket, whatever that was. A couple blocks later, and I came across a mer dweller village. But unfortunately, most of these chests proved rather useless. Sadly, Bubbles and I returned home empty-handed, so I set off right after to look for any other chests that could be around with potential name tags in them. Still name tagless on day 58, I decided to set off with Dreamfire in hopes of finding a new structure or new biome with potential chests and name tags, because I just really wanted to hatch one of my death worms and they needed name tags. We flew around for quite a bit before we suddenly came across another cyclops. And there was a couple different reasons that killing this cyclops would be to my advantage. Number 1, Dreamfire and I could finally test out her ice breath skills. And number 2, I really wanted a cyclops skull for my museum. We got closer and I commanded Dreamfire to use her ice breath on this cyclops. And I'm gonna be honest here, it did way less damage than I thought it would. The most it really did was slow the cyclops down. Honestly, I could have probably got closer and used the Dragon Strike ability that I knew Dreamfire had, but I was still worried that she was gonna take damage, and I really just didn't want to see my dragon hurt. I did eventually shoot the Cyclops down, but of course when I went over to get my rewards, I did not get a Cyclops skull. My dragon and I lifted into the sunset and headed home for the night. Unfortunately, we had returned home once again empty-handed. Which is why on day 59, after I had done a couple chores around the house, I decided it was time to set off and go exploring, but this time by myself. It wasn't long before I came across yet another Cyclops. I'd literally never seen this many Cyclops ever, but apparently they're everywhere now. Somehow, I guess I managed to also blind this Cyclops, which I didn't know was a thing, but when I zoomed in, I saw he constantly had his one eye closed. So a bit more shooting later, and I had finally killed the Cyclops. And maybe I didn't get a Cyclops skull this time, but I did get a legendary eye weapon. I continued my exploration into a large pine forest when I saw something flying out of the corner of my eye. And maybe, perhaps, started another forest fire.
And just sneak up and kill this guy like that? Uh-oh. That's not good.
I had killed yet another dragon, but unfortunately it was not a stage 4 and just another stage 3, which meant I was still on the hunt for a stage 4 dragon skull as well. And on day 60, once I had returned home, I made quite a few dragon meals. Quickly, I fed them the Dreamfire, and then I checked her stats. She was now officially a stage 4 dragon. This meant that I was finally comfortable enough to fight alongside Dreamfire in a boss battle in the near future. And stupidly enough, when I was emptying my inventory and kind of changing things and moving things around, I realized I had another backpack, and when I went to check it, there's a name tag inside. Maybe I should have probably checked the backpack and all my other chests first before I set out on a 2-day journey to find a name tag. I don't know, maybe I know for next time. Now that I finally had gotten my name tag, Ranch's carcass was staring me in the face. Of course, nothing could replace Ranch my deathworm. How would he even feel about me hatching yet another? Would he be disappointed in me? No, Ranch would not be disappointed. He would be happy for me. Despite all this, I couldn't help but think about our last moments together.
Ranch, what are you doing here, buddy? I've been looking for you.
No! Ranch! His memory will live on through my next deathworm. In fact, I will make him practically unstoppable this time around. And I would do it all for my friend who died trying to save me from zombies. This was the closure I needed. And now it was time to hatch our next deathworm. I headed outside and went right to my anvil to put in my name tag. Honestly, there's not that many white condiments, so I went with what my gut was telling me. Introducing my deathworm Ketchup. I decided to hatch Ketchup in my little greenhouse, and it didn't last long because he immediately left. He did not want to be there. Clearly, Ketchup here is a much larger baby than a regular deathworm. This is because giant deathworms can grow over 20 blocks long, sometimes even bigger than that. Along with being bigger, he will also be much more powerful than the average deathworm. Deathworms usually stay within a 50-yard radius of where they were hatched and will also hunt down any hostile mobs within the area. You know, having guard dogs, totally overrated, but having guard giant deathworms? Come on. We'll go with that any day of the week.
Buddy is already massive. Hey there, Ketchup! Aw, he's dancing. I build an enclosure for him? Is that the move? Let's do that. Let's build our little guy an enclosure. How are we gonna get him in here? Well, that's a great question. I'm not quite sure.
Originally, I did not plan on making my giant deathworm an enclosure, mostly because he was already the size of most of these enclosures. But I realized I did have another normal deathworm egg in my chest, and I could make this its home. I went through my chest and grabbed as much sand as I could possibly find, and even had to get a little bit more. And so I spent the rest of day 61 practically just digging a trench. I continued digging and replacing and basically just making a giant sand mound. Now I know what you're thinking, this is a pretty boring enclosure, Spicy. Well, deathworms thrive in desert biomes with lots of sand. And I thought about adding cactuses, but then I was like, well, that'll just kill them. And so basically right now, just for now, this is just gonna be a giant sand pit. When I finally finished the enclosure on day 62, I ran back into my house and I fetched my last deathworm egg. I made my way into the enclosure and set this deathworm egg down, creating a cute little red deathworm. And I think it's safe to say that our little deathworm enjoyed his sandy enclosure. Afterwards, I went and found Ketchup and tried to figure out a way to get him back towards the enclosure, even though he was probably way too big for it. So the thing with deathworms is they don't take any commands from nobody. There's not a way to make them sit or stay or follow you. You kinda just gotta figure it out. But I have a big brain, and I thought I figured out a way to actually control these deathworms. However, it was in fact a little sketchy, because in the last thing I read, it said that, it could potentially break games. And, losing this entire world would just not be very sick nasty. But I like to live life on the edge, so I emerged from my house with my 2 fishing poles, ready to go ride Ketchup into the sunset. I located him in the exact same place he was last time because I think he's way too big for these birch trees. I launched a fishing pole and suddenly I was riding him. And also suffocating because once again, way too big for these trees in this forest. But hey, it worked, and so far so good. My game hadn't crashed and I wasn't losing my entire world. But as you could see, it took a while to get out of the forest with this giant worm, and whoa, slow down there, buddy. You're going a little crazy right now, a little fast.
1 hour later. 2,000 years later.
Unironically, this was probably one of the most difficult things I've ever done in this game, was try to control a freaking giant deathworm. But eventually, I did get my deathworm into the enclosure. Even though he, basically took up the entire enclosure, he seemed happy. And that's what matters. Day 63, I basically just farmed and cooked a lot. And I also started digging up a ton of sand to finish off my hippocampus enclosure. And this took about 3 days, because that's a lot of glass to smelt. By the end of day 66, I was very tired of building, and so I decided the next day I was gonna set off with one goal in mind. A goal I've mentioned since the beginning. Formerly a bonus goal, but now a main goal, was to go and find a fire dragon, slay the fire dragon, and take an egg. I also tried to brew some potions so I'd have a little better regeneration for when I fought the fire dragon, but clearly I have no idea what I'm doing. So I just make a couple golden apples and call it good. I armored up on day 67, went and got a little more food, and before I knew it, I was scavenging through caves for any sign of a dragon. Finally, after working my way through tons of mobs and awful cave structures for about a day, I came into an opening where I soon spotted something peculiar in the distance and decided it was definitely a dragon. I should probably explain what led me to doing this dragon quest. Well, as you know from my last video, the Sunbird, one of the bosses we came across, was fire related. And if I used my ice dragon, this would be extra dangerous considering fire, so I decided why not fight fire with fire. I tried to sneak a little closer to the dragon so that I could actually tell if it was a female, considering females were the only ones that dropped eggs.
I don't see dark spots on the wings. If there's not dark spots, then this is a female. I actually don't know if this is a fire or a lightning dragon. After overthinking like 20,000 different situations where I die a brutal death and lose all my stuff, I finally decided I just needed to go for it. Hype me up, hype me up.
I jumped down into the cave, and now there was no turning back.
Got it. Whew. Holy cow, dude. Wait, I really hope this is a level 5. Not just like a really strong... Oh my god, wait.
I'd finally done it. I'd slain a fire dragon, a level 5, and gotten an egg on the first try. I finished up gathering a lot of gold and a lot of stuff from the chests, and then I started heading out of the cave. It was finally day 69, and I was heading home through a massive storm, which of course cleared up as soon as I got home. Once there, I had emptied out some of my inventory into some chests and then headed to Dreamfire to make sure she was well fed. I was way too excited to have a baby fire dragon all to myself, so I grabbed my bestiary and started doing research over how to hatch a fire dragon egg, in which I quickly read that I needed to stack up some wood and netherrack into a pile and put the egg on it. Now, I took this very literally and didn't even think about the fact that it meant I needed to put a fire on the pile, because, you know, it's a fire dragon egg. So I went down to the small cave and began to build a large pile of wood and netherrack, because that is what the directions said. I placed the egg down on the pile and then just sat there for like 5 minutes, and then I had the thought, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Oh, Spicy, you finally understand you have to light the egg on fire because it's a fire dragon egg. Finally, you're going up to get some flint and steel. About time you figured it. Where are you going? Where are you going? Okay, bear with me. So for some reason, my brain thought, here's the problem. I have wood planks down instead of wood logs on the pile. What the heck, silly old me, right? So I was indeed surprised when nothing changed.
I looked it up and it said the dragon egg should be on fire.
Yeah, no Sherlock. So on day 70, I actually grabbed my flint and steel and headed right back down. I lit the egg on fire, and now all I could do was just wait. I even did a little fire dance, just for extra good luck.
Oh, it's so cute. Hi, buddy.
After about 10 to 15 minutes, my dragon egg had finally hatched.
So cute, wait. Oh, it's a female too.
I couldn't believe I finally hatched my own baby fire dragon. Once this little guy got older, we could take him back to Dreamfire's little enclosure and they could be friends forever. But first, she was gonna need a name and maybe a couple dragon meals just to start her off. Day 71, I went exploring old dragon lairs that I'd passed while on land, looking for any kind of name tag so I could actually name my new little baby dragon. But unfortunately, I could not find any, so I continued exploring. Then while I was fighting this cyclops, I had a thought come to my big old brain. I realized that I'd gotten most of my name tags and a lot of my other stuff from underground mine shafts that I'd found along the way. So I killed the cyclops, and then the next day, I decided I was gonna go look for an opening to one of these mine shafts. I knew of an opening not super far away from my house that I hadn't yet to explore, so I headed there, where I soon found a zombie spawner with a couple chests. I adventured around these maze of a mine shaft for quite a bit because they are hella confusing. And quite a few chests later, I had finally escaped with 4 name tags. You may remember that I've had Aquacultures hatched for a while with no name tags, so they were gonna have to be up first. I'd love you to introduce everybody to Albert Eggstein. Listen, I know it's dumb, okay? I thought it was funny. Leave me alone. Next up was my little baby deathworm, which I could only think of condiments still, so that was the theme for all my deathworms now. This definitely made me realize I probably should have made a name tag before I hatched this little guy because, first of all, he's fast and tiny, and I sat there for 5 minutes trying to catch him. Once I finally caught my deathworm Mustard, it was now time to name my dragon. Now we had Dreamfire, so it was only fair that my fire dragon became Sunfire. I went down and placed her name tag on her and fed her a few dragon meals, and she was really starting to grow quickly. I also decided it was about time I start making armor for Sunfire too. But since it was night by now, I decided that tomorrow was when I would go adventuring for some more iron to make even more armor. And on day 74, it was finally time to set out, but I didn't get far when tragedy struck.
What? Ketchup was blown up by ketchup. What does that mean?
I was in denial. There was no way my deathworm Ketchup was dead. He had just been thriving in his enclosure just moments prior.
What? I wish you guys could see my face right now. What the flip? Wait, what? He killed himself? That is so sad.
As it turns out, Ketchup had finally met his match, but no one, absolutely no one would have had expected it to be himself. Ketchup became his own worst enemy. I continued on my journey, unable to turn back and face what was to come. No longer would I see Ketchup's massive body glitching through the fence into my garden. No longer would I be able to go -10 miles per hour on a deathworm. I was mad. I was upset with myself. I was the one who had put him in that enclosure thinking he would be safe. But ultimately, I was the reason he blew himself up. After slaughtering a ton of animals, I came across some of the Sunbird's henchmen. But alas, as per usual, they were no match for my sharpness 2 sword. And I also got some cool masks out of it that I didn't have yet. I slaughtered a few more animals and then headed down to Sunfire's cave so that I could make her some more dragon meals. And another thing I had totally forgotten about was the items I could make for my dragon, such as a dragon horn and a dragon flute. The dragon horn would allow me to basically make my dragons portable. I could pick them up in the horn and just carry them places. Then the flute was basically just if my dragons decided to fly away, I could blow on the flute and they would come right back to the ground. The next day, instead of going on a mining trip as I had originally planned, I decided I was actually going to go ahead and expand my castle. You know, considering I now was about to have 2 massive dragons. I parked Dreamfire outside the castle so I could expand it and build and began the outline. But I did realize how little time I had and I didn't want to waste any of it. So it did take 2 days, but I stayed up day and night so that I would not have to waste any more time. On day 77, I had finally finished the expansion. All I'd really done was expand it out to the left, but I just wanted to make enough room that 2 dragons could fit in there perfectly fine. And once I had finished, I still had a little time left of the day, so I decided to make Sunfire as many dragon meals as I could at this moment. Day 78, I grabbed what iron I had in my chest and began to make a bunch of iron blocks so I could finish off some of the armor for Sunfire.
Then as I headed back up, I realized I had a rotten egg in my inventory, which I don't know how that got there, but I mean, hey, I'll take it. So I went to my cockatrice enclosure and unfortunately nothing hatched. But I decided, you know what, it's been a while since I took my little guys for a couple walks, so let's go ahead and do that. And almost immediately, they started attacking a skeleton under a tree, which, you know what, I was proud of them because I needed bones for dragon meals anyways. The four of us continued our cutesy little morning stroll. I returned my cockatrices and then decided now was a good time to go on that mining expedition for some iron. I went into my armory to grab some armor and emerged with a brand new look. One of my favorite things about mining that makes it so much easier is the shader pack I use that literally highlights all the ores when I hold a pickaxe. I would be lost without this. Okay, what the hell is that? Oops, sorry, bat. I had accidentally stumbled upon an old dragon cavern from my last video, and apparently I never looted any of the chests, so I grabbed as much as I could. Then I heard the awful sound of a bunch of little legs behind me. At first I thought I can defeat this centipede. I fought dragons, sea serpents, cyclops, everything, so this can't be that bad. But I realized how much damage it was doing to me with its poison, and it was very, very fast. It could climb literally everything. And so I made a break for it, considering I didn't even have my strongest armor on, and didn't realize there was a hole in the ground. God dang it. Eventually, I did get my stuff back, but by the time I did, it was already day 79, and I'd lost about 20 levels, which was fantastic, really amazing, splendid even. But luckily, I had just enough iron to complete Sunfire's armor set. So I took a little nap, and then in the morning went down to finish putting it on. At this point, Sunfire was almost at a stage 3 dragon, and she was fully equipped with armor, so I was feeling pretty good about this. And I figured while I wait for her to grow, I might as well go test out my new little dragon toys. I casually scooped up the giant Dreamfire in a little horn, and then traveled to a more open area to place her down. And we even tried out the escorting command with our dragon staff. After a long and awesome day of training, we finally headed home. And on day 81, with the help of all the animals that Dreamfire had slaughtered, I made a couple more dragon meals and fed them to Sunfire. I ended up having leftover meat because I actually ended up running out of dragon bones and regular bones. However, I knew of a place that would most likely have a lot of dragon bones, and I suited up just in case things went south. You remember at the beginning when I was getting chased by 2 different dragons on my hippogriff? Well, I'd only escaped because the 2 dragons following me had decided to fight each other. So I headed right back to that island to find either the remains of the losing dragon or to finish the fight between the 2. I stalked a little closer to the area I had seen them last, and then I saw them. It appeared the 2 dragons were still in combat, fire versus lightning. And now I had to figure out how to approach this. Did I want to drag Dreamfire into this? Did I just let them fight it out? Did I kill them myself? However, as soon as I released Dreamfire, I noticed that one of the dragons had finally been killed. But there was still one left, and I really needed dragon bones for my dragon meals, so I was gonna have to put it down. Fortunately, the battle was won in one swift hit. Just like that, Dreamfire and I had destroyed 2 dragons and we're now going to be bringing home extra bones. On day 82, I made a bunch of dragon meals and fed them to Sunfire until she was day 48. So I slaughtered some more animals and then went back down to feed her 2 more dragon meals to get her to day 50, which would officially be a stage 3 dragon. And since she'd gotten a lot bigger, it was now time to move her to the castle just so she didn't outgrow the cave entirely. And they were roommates. I casually introduced Dreamfire and Sunfire and sorta kinda just hoped that they didn't try and kill each other. I headed into my museum as the sun set and realized I still had a lot of work to be done here as well. I only had one sea serpent skull, and I knew I could get way more of different sizes, and I still needed a cyclops skull and a stage 4 dragon skull. So I decided the next day I would go out to look for some cyclopses and maybe some sea serpents so that I could add some things to my museum. However, I did decide to hop on Pepper and just go around, scan the area, and see if I could spot any cyclopses or sea serpents before the sun went down. Eventually, I did find a cyclops, and instead of just waiting for the daytime, I decided to try and kill it anyways. And this is also about when I realized that the reason I probably wasn't getting skulls was because, oh, you know, I wasn't using a sword to decapitate them. I know, crazy concept. Who would have thought about that? Like, come on. Listen, I have a slow brain, okay? Leave me alone. The next day and the day after that, I spent all my time looking for sea serpents, but I literally just could not find any. I don't know if I killed them all or where they're all at, but I went to 2 different oceans to see if I could find anything. And listen, I may not have found sea serpents, but somehow, some way, I found a dragon I tried to fight in my last video that had ran away from me. Yes, I did lose a dragon in my last video. I actually lost a couple, if you remember correctly. But this time, I was determined to finish the job. I wasn't ready for this. No! Even if I did die at least once. Not done with you. You? Son? Abagon? I don't care if I die. I've already lost all my levels. I won't let you. Oh, got him. Oh, shiitake mushroom on a stick. Even though I hadn't originally anticipated fighting a dragon on my sea serpent journey, it was worth it because I found an egg. I guess we have another one. I hadn't really prepared to name any new dragons anytime soon, but I knew the perfect name for my new ice dragon. And I also figured I might as well hatch it right now. And a few moments later, the dragon hatched. I gave Sea Smoke her name and a couple dragon meals to start her off. Day 86, Dreamfire and I set out to go hunting a little bit more because we needed a lot more dragon meals. Mostly because I was running out of time and I needed all of my dragons to be a lot higher stage than they were. Once I got back, I fed Sunfire as many dragon meals as I possibly could, and she grew quite a bit. I also noticed that my hat and pants were starting to break, so I made extra gear just in case. Day 87, Dreamfire and I set out to look for sea serpents one last time. And eventually, I did find some, too, actually. While they were pretty small and pretty easy to kill, I still hit them with my sword in hopes of potentially getting a skull. But unfortunately, my luck is just not that great, so I did not get any skulls, and I realized how rare they actually are. I also found a cyclops later, and the same thing went with them. It was a 2.5% chance of actually dropping a skull, so I figured I might as well unleash the beast. Well, I guess it's time to shine. I placed Dreamfire down and figured I might as well see what kind of damage my little dragon could do. Dreamfire had taken the Cyclops down pretty easily. Of course, I did help a little with my arrows, but she did most of the work. And as I flew back that next morning, I opened my map and saw that there was a Cyclops lair not too far. So of course I had to stop by and make sure I could kill it, and maybe it would drop a skull.
once I had blinded the cyclops with my bow and arrow, I went in with my sword.
Just give me your skull. I don't want any trouble. I just want your skull. That's all. That's all. That's all I want from you. Don't take my bread. Don't ever do that again.
And once again, my luck is not that great.
Still no head, bro?
So no head?
So I was on my way back home now, and unfortunately I had nothing to return with. However, day 89, I started planning what I was going to do next. I thought it was time we try and fight the sunbird again. You know, that giant bird boss that I tried to fight last time, but literally had no idea what I was getting myself into. But this time, I had a plan, and a pretty genius one if you ask me. The plan was simple. Through my research, I had found out that if you wear a mask into the sunbird's grove, they will not attack you. Once I scout out the area, I'm going to casually walk in there and pretend to be one of the birds. Luckily, I'm great at impersonations. The sunbird will not suspect a thing, so I will cautiously approach him as a bird. Thanks to my incredible impression skills, he'll just think I'm an average bird coming to bow down to him. And then, when he least expects it, boom! The sword comes out and I start swinging. And then I call in my backup, Dreamfire, who will come in and crush the rest of these birds. Oh yeah, and another thing that I found out while I was researching was you're really not supposed to put an ice and fire dragon together, like at all. But we'd be fine, as long as I didn't let Dreamfire wander. I located the sunbird's grove on my map, which kind of just looked like a giant tree. And soon enough, I was on my way. Unfortunately, nothing ever goes to plan, and of course, there are other complications, always.
Oh. Dude, I didn't even know this guy was there. Where did he come from?
A lightning dragon had appeared in my wake, and at this point, I really couldn't tell what stage of dragon it was. But I needed to make a move and quick, so I decided to just land Dreamfire, take her back into the horn to protect her, and fight this lightning dragon myself. Once I got the dragon trapped in the water for just a second with my ice sword, I decided to go let Dreamfire free and see what kind of damage she could really do.
Good girl! Good girl!
I looted the lightning dragon, really hoping for a stage 4 skull. But unfortunately, this lightning dragon was only a level 3.
Dang. Stage 4s are so hard to come by. This must have been where the dragon was. Well, good thing it is gone now.
Well, that was one obstacle out of the way, but now is the actual hard part. Hoping my plan actually worked. We finally landed, and it didn't take long before I spotted a group of birds scouting the area. We easily took care of this group, and it made it easier that they weren't fighting back.
You see, they think I'm one of them right now.
At least this had confirmed the first part of my plan, which was sneaking in unnoticed.
Alright, so far so good. This is what I was hoping for. Should I have brought a golden apple? Or 2 or 3? Absolutely I should have, but did I? Absolutely not.
This was it. This was the moment. This was my only plan. So far, it was going well. I walked through the grove, waiting for my moment to strike, when all of a sudden... Ooh, a chest! Okay, apparently opening that chest had cost me my secrecy.
Well, now I fear they know it's me because I opened a chest. I'm not supposed to do that.
Now
it seemed less likely I'd be able to just simply walk up to the sunbird, so I ended up sneaking up on his throne behind him, hoping to make a surprise attack. I think we just hit, and that's all we gotta do. And so I just went for it. And you know, everything seemed to be going pretty well at first. Well, until the sunbird hit me with an attack I didn't even know existed, and suddenly I was on fire. And remember when I said that I'm extremely flammable? Well, I am extremely flammable. You see, there was already a few things going completely wrong. First thing, the fire attacks constantly by the sunbird. I take so much damage to fire that this is going to be extremely hard. The second problem was the sunbird. Whenever it got low on health, it would simply spawn in minions, steal their health, and then instantly be full HP. He has these little guys he like sucks the health off of. Ugh, this might be a little harder than anticipated. This meant there was now 2 different things I needed to worry about at the same time. I had to go and kill all his minions he was taking health from, then go back up, hit him, and this cycle would start over and over and over again. And it definitely didn't help that the terrain was so hard to go through. To top it off, it wasn't just the sunbird and minions I had to worry about. I also had to worry about the giant beams of fire coming out of the ground. I continued to fight the entire night, and even into the morning. But no matter how much damage I did, the sunbird would just get it back instantly. All right, rethink this. We need to rethink this. I finally tore away from the battle to try and figure out a new plan, or if I could even do it at all. I hit the sunbird. Sunbird gets hurt. Sunbird calls in his little reinforcement healers. His healers heal him. He's invincible until I kill the healers. I go to kill the healers, but they're scattered around the property. Fight him again. Same thing. Except I can't be everywhere at once, and I also am very flammable, and he happens to spit fire. And then the thing is, I could try and, throw in Dreamfire, but would that really do anything? Because he's invincible until I kill the things, and then as soon as his little minions start coming after me, that's who Dreamfire is gonna go after. So I seriously don't know if there's like an answer to this. I finally decided that it probably wasn't worth my time. I mean, I'd spent the entire night and half of day 91 trying to fight this thing and got absolutely nowhere. So while this goal wouldn't be achieved, there was a new one that I really wanted to make sure I got done before I hit 200 days. Finally, we had arrived home. It had been a long couple days and I was very much ready to just settle down for the night and prepare for my next goal. When I woke up on day 92, I realized just how ugly my outfit was, so I had to take this thing off immediately. And now it was time to start studying my next goal. That's right, folks, the next goal was to get a lightning dragon for myself. Once I got a lightning dragon, that would mean I'd successfully tamed every kind of dragon, which was massive. In doing some research, I learned that you could find their caves in savanna, mesa, and jungle biomes. I also learned that these are some of the hardest dragons to actually kill. Yes, very, very good news. Wonderful. I love fighting for my life. Immediately, I went to locating the nearest jungle biome on my map, which happened to be the place where I had gotten the supplies for my amphitheory. There was one item I wanted to make sure I made plenty of for when I ended up fighting a lightning dragon, which was a golden apple. Those things saved my life way too much. Unfortunately, I wasted a lot of the day mining birch tree leaves thinking they would give me apples for some reason. I don't know, I'm just stupid, okay? But just a few blocks up, I found a regular forest biome with a bunch of oak trees, and so I spent the entire night just mining as many leaves as I could, trying to get as many apples as I could. Day 93, I woke up and finished making all the golden apples, and then decided since all my dragon armor gear was starting to break, I might as well make some new ones, but I didn't have a lot of levels. So I had to XP farm just a little bit. Finally, I had a chance to enchant all my new armor. Day 94.
the day I would go out and look for a lightning dragon cave, slay the beast, and take its egg. I found a little cave and followed it down through a bunch of bigger caverns, fighting through a bunch of mobs. I can't 100% tell you how long it took me, but probably at least 2 days, because this was not an easy find. And it certainly felt longer.
Oh boy, okay. This is the moment, folks. This is the moment we've been waiting for. This is a lightning dragon cave. Because they like amethyst, and that is amethyst, and that is copper, which means we are correct.
I began to mine into the cave, and that's when I spotted this dragon's giant head. While I couldn't quite guess the exact stage of this dragon from here, it definitely looked very big, and so I thought it was a stage 5 dragon. And after giving myself a very long pep talk, it was time to get in there and kill that dragon. I shot an arrow at the dragon, and immediately it started digging its way out, trying to escape. And even as I swam closer and closer, I just could not get a hit on this dragon. And I couldn't even get up to the surface to get air, so I was drowning and getting struck by lightning continuously, and then being picked up and thrown back down.
Good thing I'm above water! Ah! Alright, we need Dreamfire out here. ASAP, ASAP, ASAP. I just need to get to land.
I summoned Dreamfire and hoped she would at least take some of the focus off me.
I'm coming, Dreamfire.
I quickly pulled my flute out, and as soon as I saw Dreamfire take even a little bit of damage, I called her back. But she was not listening. She kept flying back up. I could not reach her.
Oh, Dreamfire, get your ass down here, please.
After many attempts, I finally got her in the horn, just in time as well.
Okay, I got him.
Thanks to my sword, I finally got the lightning dragon in the water and stuck there for just a moment at least, giving me time to either hit or swim away. Soon I found a cave and decided I'd go in here, collect my thoughts, and try to regen my hunger and health. However, as I emerged from the cave, I realized how deathly quiet it was, and when I came out, there was no sign of the lightning dragon at all.
Oh, I can't lose another dragon, please. What in the hell is that?
I searched around for quite a bit longer, but for some reason, there was not a single sign of which way this dragon went.
I lost it. I lost the lightning dragon.
But while the lightning dragon was gone, I wanted to make sure I checked on Dreamfire and her health. So I summoned her from the horn, but immediately she took off towards the jungle again. I may have lost the lightning dragon, but she sure didn't.
Oh my god, no. She's gonna get herself killed because she keeps... leave me alone! Dreamfire, get your badonkadonk over here, dude. Oh my god.
While I couldn't actually get Dreamfire back in the horn, I could at least hit this dragon while it was focused on me and not her. And so the two of us went back and forth, smacking the hell out of this lightning dragon. And so a long battle commenced.
We got it. Yes. That guy needs to f off.
As you can probably tell, I was super tense and stressed out from this dragon fight, but at least I'd killed it, and now it was time for my rewards.
Let's see what all we got. Okay, you leave me alone. An egg. I saw an egg. That was. Oh wait, did I get 2? Okay, I lied. I definitely didn't get 2 eggs, but I got 1 egg.
By nightfall, I'd managed to make my way up a tree, get on Dreamfire, and start to fly home. Except this time, I'd been successful, and I'd gotten a lightning dragon egg all for myself. Day 97 was finally here, and it was now time to name my dragon. I'd also realized that the dragon I'd slain was actually a stage 4, which was also the skull I needed for my museum to complete my collection. Soon I headed down to my hatchling cave, but upon reading the lightning dragon egg research, it says that it's not supposed to be in an enclosed area, like it has to be under an open sky. I noticed another page of the lightning dragon egg research, and according to this, it could only hatch when it rained. And so I found what looked to be a good spot to place the dragon egg under an open sky, and hopefully it would rain soon. But just in case, I decided to do a rain dance, you know, kind of engage it a little bit. It was so weird. It's like my rain dance worked instantly. It was insane. Don't know how that happens. Crazy stuff. But it started raining and this was perfect. But then I realized I'm dumb and the one place that I decided to place the egg was blocked off by some leaves. So I had to go up there and clear that area out. I made my way back down and boy oh boy was she wiggling. It was time for her to start hatching. So I waited about 10-15 minutes. I don't really know how long it was. It's probably like 10 minutes. I waited 10 minutes for this egg to hatch and just kind of sat around watching it, making sure nothing happened to it. And as I watched TikToks on my phone, I was suddenly jump scared by lightning.
Oh, okay. All right. That was cool as hell. Oh, little baby, little baby.
I took Siraxi into the hatchling cave just for the night so she would be safe. The next day, I'd ended up building a wall in between Sea Smoke and Siraxi simply because I'm sure they don't like sharing and they are babies, so they are a little bit unpredictable. I made sure they were both well fed and then headed up to Dreamfire and Sunfire just to make sure they were also fed. And especially Dreamfire because she had fought a long and hard battle against a lightning dragon. Day 98 was coming to a close, so I took a stroll and thought about all the things I'd done in this world. And while I hadn't achieved every goal I set out to do, I had done most of them, and all the ones I wanted, so I was still happy with this. On day 99, I decided I would try and finish up some of the things in my museum. Well, all that I could, considering I hadn't got any more sea serpent skulls or a cyclops skull. However, I did have other droppings from other creatures I'd come across and had fought in my 200 days. And as the sun went down, I decided there was one more thing I needed to do, which was look for my deathworm mayonnaise from my very first video that I hadn't seen since then. And just when all hope was about to be lost, I spotted a zombie and then a little white guy squirming across the water to go kill it.
Oh my... Mayonnaise?
Just across the river was one of my first deathworms, recently thought to be either missing or dead.
Oh my... Mayonnaise? You're still alive? Gotcha! Alright, Mayonnaise, look, I know you're living your best life because this is the only sand you've seen for miles, but wait till I show you what I did with the place, okay? You're gonna be shocked. There you go, Mayonnaise. Don't kill each other.
Finally, it was day 100, and so I got up and brought all my dragons to their castle. Once introductions were done, I couldn't believe I'd actually done 200 days in a Minecraft world. It's hard to believe that my first fantasy video was the first time I'd ever done 100 days in Minecraft, and now I'd done 200. It has been a wild, crazy, and super fun journey in my 200 days, and I can't wait to make even more 100-day videos for all of you. So once again, thank you guys so much for all the love and support you gave me on not just my very first fantasy video, but my first 100-day video in general. I'm super excited to keep making content for all of you, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did, maybe you could, I don't know, like, comment, and subscribe. I don't know. Well, just a thought. But anyways, thank you guys again so much. I appreciate it. I hope you have an amazing day, and I will see you in my next video.